Welcome. Welcome, everyone, to the United States of America podcast. I am Niti and I am hosting live from the Food Church here in North Carolina. I hope everyone's doing well. Listen, Anna and I have been really working hard to get our schedules to jive because with all the work that she's doing right now, it is a lot. Everything is really tight and all of her attention is focused on getting relief ready for all living men on earth. That's what's going on. And so she and I have a meeting scheduled this weekend because we really are trying to get realigned and make sure that she's able to manage her health. I've always told Anna that she should feel no pressure, to come back to the podcast. Ever since James died, it's not been that long ago. There's so much going on, and that grandma is just never taking a break, and we really need to take care of grandma. So, I, for one, am not going to put any pressure on her, not for the podcast. I've told her that if she needs a break, then she definitely has no pressure, no stress to come here. I do have updates for us. And so we have lots of news that we can go over. So we will just do that. But we will honor Anna and give her some time, for healing. Okay. So what's happened this week? Well, while everybody was asleep and listening to the national news about a snowstorm in Chicago, Africa united against state terrorism and backs action against Israel genocide in Gaza. This shifts the balance of world power worldwide. For the first time in centuries, Africa speaks the whole continent. They are getting much the same shock disbelief as we encountered when we first raised our hands and began to bring forward the great fraud. Everyone stared at us like talking horses. They couldn't quite believe what they'd heard or understand who said it. The reaction to Africa's stand against genocide in Gaza has much the same flavor. The political party ideologues, the old power players, and they're caught completely off balance and being forced to recalculate absolutely everything about their plans and assumptions going forward. They can no longer count on easy access to African resources at whatever price they care to pay. And their entire network of spies and political toadies is being vastly undermined. And instead of being a quiet and subservient backyard for Europe, Africa is rising. The implications of this are staggering, politically, economically, and militarily. Europe has around 450 million people. Africa has over 1 billion. Europe's landmass and resource base is tiny compared to Africa, a fact that was long overshadowed by Europe's technological advantages. That advantage is being left in the dust as new trade, education, and technology opens up for Africa with the BRICS alliance. While some people view this as a political issue and snarl about communism, the actual factor driving the relationship of Africa and BRICS is the simple fact that Africa has gold and plenty of it. Therefore, it makes all the sense in the world that Africa will want to be part of BRICS and will trade in gold. This is what Muammar Gaddafi saw and was motivated. That's what motivated his call for an African Union and a single gold standard African currency. The United States certainly can't say anything about this and should never have done anything in opposition to this, the invasion of Libya, because the African nation states are simply doing what we did ourselves. They are following our playbook. The unprovoked attack on Libya and vicious treatment given to the popular Libyan government is perhaps the single most hypocritical action any U.S. government administration was ever bullied into. And among the most regrettable, the U.S. attack on Libya and removal of Gaddafi delayed but could never stop the forces tending to unite Africa and place Africa on the gold standard as a major player in the world economy. Nature decreed that outcome, not Gaddafi. The cost of the attack on Libya goes far beyond the cost of armaments or even lives lost. It cost us the trust and the respect and the goodwill of many African nations that would otherwise welcome trade and good diplomatic relations with the United States. We were played to our own detriment to attack Libya and by the same pernicious European interests that engineered the great fraud. We betrayed our own values in the process. We will have to rebuild our identity in the world community as decent, rational people, and also have to rebuild our reputation as reliable business partners. Assumptions destroyed in Africa by the Libyan campaign, the Gates Foundation vaccine horrors, and the meddling of the CIA in Zimbabwe has resulted in multiple changes of government and great political strife. Zimbabwe is one of the most beautiful countries in Africa, blessed not only with mineral wealth, but with fantastic diversity of animal and plant life. It is among the last habitats on Earth for rare species like the black rhino. When investors look at the Zim bonds and salivate over the big returns they are anticipating, reflect that most of those bonds were issued as a result of political corruption and that the people of Zimbabwe did not benefit from their issuance. Stop and consider that the funding of those bonds requires strip mining and destruction of one of the most beautiful places on Earth. What else happens this week? Well, Lord Hermer effectively admitted that Britain had its dirty fingers in the fentanyl drug trade and is profiteering from importing the drug. And perhaps more importantly, the base chemicals to make it into the United States. One of the biggest drug busts in our history wasn't the capture of finished street drugs, but instead the capture of the base chemicals needed to make the street drugs. And that was being expedited by our own border control officials. We have long suspected Britain's involvement in the explosive growth of the fentanyl and methamphetamine crisis in this country because we can look back to China's experience during the Opium Wars and trace the same scripted operation with the same overall impacts being repeated here. It wasn't until Trump started intercepting carrier vessels in the high seas and collecting data captured from their ships manifest that the evidence of the British involvement coalesced. Lord Hermer's move to stop sharing satellite surveillance information with the United States through the Five Eyes initiative is seen for what it is, the attempt to protect Britain's illicit drug-related and other smuggling activity in the Caribbean and worldwide. They've been benefiting themselves commercially by pushing drugs on a civilian population, ours, just as they pushed opium products on the Chinese more than a century ago, and Trump caught them at it. That's the core of the dust-up, not only concerning the drug trade, but the illegal arms trade and human trafficking too. Now they're taking their surveillance satellite feeds away so that their own equipment isn't giving away the position of their smuggling operations. Our so-called special relationship with the British government is at an end, but that's all right. It's best not to consort with criminals. We will put up our own satellites and be better off for it. Nobody can ever rely on British intelligence anyway. Lord Hermer has circumstantially admitted that the British government has a finger in the pie. But after all the criminal and immoral activity we've all suffered at the hands of this one particular corrupt and evil government, nobody should be overly surprised. At the same time, Keir Starmer nonchalantly proposed to seize royal estate lands in Cornwall that have been under royal guardianship for 700 years to build cheap but modern council housing developments. He did this without the nicety of consulting with the royals about this or developing a mutually agreeable plan. When Prince William quietly objected, Starmer said that family had no say in it and that they were basically assuming powers that disappeared hundreds of years ago. The backlash has been immediate, overwhelming, and vicious, with Stramer and the entire Labor Party being hit harder than they ever have been hit in living memory. The depth of the British people's resentment and rejection in sending tsunami-like shockwaves through political pundits and pollsters alike. You can take their fish and chips. You can starve them, beat them, send them to the ends of the earth, fry them in the desert, lose them in the jungles, drown them in the sea, and they will stump along and spit, but hurt their royal family personally, and that's it. So Mr. Prime Minister Stramer has bitten the big one in Britain, and he was so arrogant, so clueless, that he thought it would play well to his political base and he'd be applauded for dissing the crown prince and seizing royal estate property. Big mistake. Big. Despite their many foibles and inequities, their palace squabbles, their petty performances, corruption, selfishness, and other less than wholesome attributes, as an institution, the royal family is still a family. It's not a political party. When the Brits look at their government, however, they may be deceived and betrayed, it still wears a human face. And once in a while, the royals will still rise to the occasion and speak for the people of Britain, which is more than Keir Starmer ever does. It's been an incredible week for world politics, with major shifts falling like dominoes. Africa and back, Britain's dirty laundry in the smuggling and drug trade is circumstantially exposed. The Five Eyes surveillance empire and our purported special relationship with Britain is falling apart. And Keir Starmer and the whole Labour Party is on the ropes in Britain. Things are looking up. We say this because any relationship we've had with the British government since the 1860s has been founded on force and fraud. And much of the same is true for the people of the Home Islands, Commonwealth, and all the countries occupied after World War II. The current tide of events bodes well for humanity as a whole because the path forward leads away from narrow-minded political ideologues like Stramer, who have been produced like widgets by government-controlled universities, away from corrupt administrative government and away from corporate feudalism. The moral decay that tolerates genocide for the sake of commercial gain, like the lies and omissions we accept in other ways about our other subjects, is a problem worldwide. Africa has now said what is needed to be said about the genocide in Gaza and the Israeli government's treatment of the Palestinians. Take a deep breath. We can all be honest again. Now we can speak to Britain's continued rampage of colonialism, which it never gave up, simply redefined and pursued in other jurisdictions under different forms of law. We can talk about entire countries, including ours, being illegally occupied by mercenary forces acting under color of law. We can see that Britain caused the whole problem in the Middle East by leasing land it didn't own to Jacob Rothschild. We can see that our country has been used as the muscle for British opposition, colonialism, and imperialism all over the world. We can admit that we were deluded, defrauded, and denigrated by our own federal subcontractors, that we were lied to and bullied, asset stripped, coerced, illegally press-ganged and conscripted, misled and misinterpreted to the rest of the world. All of that and more. We've been the goats, the storefront, the fall guys, the clueless rubes, the indentured servants, and the slaves. Yes, we have. We've been dead asleep at the wheel for 6 generations, but no more. We're awake now, like Rip Van Winkle or Robinson Crusoe. We are re-entering the world. Notice to principals is notice to agents. Notice to agents is notice to principals. I love Anna. She's so fun. I mean, like, I'm telling y'all, this is fun, right? And look, nobody likes hearing it, but nobody likes to be criticized for wrongdoing. It's embarrassing. But it does force one to examine thoughts and actions and evaluate things from other perspectives than just your own. Even if people are outright lying about you, you have the opportunity to check your certain knowledge against what they are saying and go from there. There is, therefore, a value in having critics. And even though those who slander you and, whatever it is that you bring forward, if only because it forces this kind of self-evaluation, we know all about this because our work has brought forward another whole history of America and a profoundly different viewpoint. The first time we said the Civil War was a mercenary conflict, not a war, it was all illegal. People looked at us like we had two heads. They also jumped to the conclusion that we were Southern sympathizers. That's what dualistic thinking will do for you. But no, the plain fact is no Congress ever issued a declaration of war related to the American Civil War. If someone thinks we are wrong about this, they are welcome to come forward and produce a credible congressional declaration of war commencing the American Civil War. If a war is not properly declared, it is illegal and takes on the character of a mercenary conflict, like the war in Vietnam. There are other proofs and indications too. One, the muster rolls show individuals and whole companies of men signing up to serve the state of Ohio, the state of Wisconsin, the state of Indiana, and all the state entities are commercial corporations of one kind or another. The soldiers probably didn't know this. They probably thought they were fighting for their state and were confused then as now, not knowing the difference. But the records are clear. Number two, Abraham Lincoln bankrupted the United States of America Incorporated the day after he issued the Lieber Code to the Union generals. Only incorporated corporations enjoy public bankruptcy protections. Sovereign governments, by definition, can't go bankrupt and enjoy sovereign immunity instead. This again indicates that the war was a mercenary conflict. Number three, what happened at Appomattox was a surrender of Lee's army of Northern Virginia and an armistice. That was it. There was no peace process and no peace treaty ever issued. What did happen is that Lincoln's successor, President Andrew Johnson, issued 3 public proclamations announcing peace on the land. No similar proclamations were ever issued proclaiming peace on the sea or in the air. So far as the historical records show, the American Civil War was an illegal mercenary conflict that was never properly settled and ended. It does not fall under the law of war and does not provide any basis for claims of territorial conquest or occupation. Sorry to be the bearers of bad news, but it is what it is. This analysis delegitimizes over 100 years of military, quasi-military occupation and administration of the government of this country. We, the Federation of States, and capital P people thereof, were neutral during the war, and we still are. All we are doing is observing the facts, and other people need to observe them too, or we are all left playing with a short deck in La La Land. With foreign subcontractor left in charge, all sorts of graft and malfeasance are bound to occur. And that does appear to be exactly what has happened here, beginning with the graft, embezzlement, and pork barreling that made the administration of Ulysses S. Grant famous. Neither of these two groups of federal employees are functioning as Americans. The territorial subcontractors are British subjects. The municipal subcontractors are Holy Roman Empire citizens of the United States. Both are residing here under the conditions of the Residence Act. Both groups have been claiming that they represent us because we assigned some limited delegated powers to them in the sea and air jurisdictions, respectively. Because their actual delegated authorities are limited to the sea jurisdiction or air jurisdiction, respectively, and because both groups have chosen to operate as incorporated entities, they can't function as a lawful sovereign government, not together, not apart. They simply don't have the right stuff to make it work. Please note, incorporated entities are not sovereign by definition, and these federal service providers lack a clear grant of authority to speak to or for our land and soil jurisdiction. So many years have gone by. The federal subcontractors have claimed that we, our American government, and most especially our American Federal Republic, are missing, in interregnum, absent, and that this creates a perpetual emergency that allows them to act extraordinarily, extraterritoriality. Sorry, y'all. You know I have this this instrument in my mouth, and it's really hard for me to enunciate. But anyway, it allows them to act extraterritoriality and assume the duties of the missing American government. Strange. They never told us about this. Not a word. Not a single public newspaper article or book clearly stating this in over 160 years. We had to hear about our absence from the former Canadian prime ministers and former secretaries of defense, British peers retired from the public life, little old ladies from Bogland in Sweden, neighbors from the Queen in Kensington, and most of all, Karen Hughes, an attorney and program manager for the World Bank. They all found their way to our door simply by looking. The Queen, Elizabeth II, certainly had our address. It hasn't changed in over 200 years. We wrote to her regularly enough, not often, but every 5 or 10 years, and most recently to object to the sale of the royal gold tribute share to China. One of our weird obligations under the treaties ending the War of Independence is that the British monarch gets a 10% share of all our gold in the ground, payable when the gold is mined and refined. Elizabeth II decided to sell this asset to the Chinese. The Chinese planned to bring in huge mining equipment and mine the western states. We objected because the Queen's interest in the in-ground assets only attaches after the gold is extracted and refined. Her percentage of gold may be hers, we said, but the soil and land surrounding the gold is ours. And we object to mammoth, willy-nilly Chinese mining operations. This is well documented and should reasonably indicate that we still have a legitimate American government, and it has officers, and it is in operation. Who else would, number one, know that the Queen had a tribute to share? Number two, know that she moved to sell it to the Chinese. Number three, that the Chinese plan would involve extensive strip mining on a very large scale and would do damage to our land and soil. 4, who would have the right and duty and knowledge to object, if not the American government? Queen Elizabeth II heard from us often enough to know our address and the topics covered in our correspondences. And the topics covered in our correspondences were not birthday good wishes. The Chinese government received their copies of our correspondence regarding the sale of the royal tribute share also. Who else but the actual American government would be concerned about keeping their original post office open? Who else would even know that it was an issue, and an important issue too? Our nation, our national seat of government in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, could not have been lost. But again, we were there corresponding with the Queen and the popes. They all got the memo. They know what that meant. They know what went on. They know that Americans showed up and signed the appropriate paperwork. Pretty hard to do if there's no American government. Right now, we are being held as political prisoners because some people don't like the truth. They think that by harassing and attacking us and sending armed thugs and making false claims in commerce to steal our homes and land and bank balances, that they will gain right by possession. But this isn't true. The old maxim that possession is 9/10 of the law is sea jurisdiction law. Our superior land jurisdiction commerce claims to retain and reclaim everything they have stolen and purloined from us predates everything they are doing by 2 or 3 decades, in some cases, 200 or 300 years, and comes down to 2 other maxims: fraud vitiates all, and possession by pirates does not change ownership. Everything has our name on it or associated with it is ours. Tax prepaid and exempt from levy. American maritime shipping and American land jurisdiction commerce is our bailiwick, not yours. Not subject to any district court, not subject to any whims and imagination of Daniel Applegate and Roswell Properties or any of the other land management municipal corporations you smart guys hire to manage our land and houses and public assets for us without our knowledge or permission. Here is our writ of execution, wherein we agree to receive it all back immediately and unharmed. We are not aboard any ship of state, but our own. And if you notice the seal you sail under, you will find that it is ours too. Instruct Mr. Applegate and DOJ in general to withdraw all their actions and complaints and fully inform the courts that they must release and exonerate all liens, all garnishments, all complaints, every accusation of any tax debt issued by any federal, state of state, municipality, borough, city, or other incorporated entity now or ever alleged to be owed by my departed husband, James Belcher, or me, Anna Maria Reisinger. And that includes any such charges brought against any other abbreviations, orderings, combinations, or permutations, styles, or variations representing or thought to represent our names in any territorial or municipal court database anywhere on this planet. Erase, exonerate, and provide full cure. Correct the corporations and agents that are misaddressing and harassing us and offering violence to us under false presumptions. That is your duty under the constitutions of the United States of America and the duty of everyone who wears a uniform or receives a government paycheck, license, or other privilege, including the privilege of bankruptcy protection. Tell the U.S. trustees and the United States trustees and the all caps United States trustees. The corporate veil is very thin tonight. Also, please inform your inept State of Alaska Incorporated franchise manager, Governor Michael Dunleavy, that he is responsible for preventing illegal takings under force as part of his obligation to the Constitution of the United States of America, especially when those takings are based on fanciful and self-interested lies lacking due process. We require an immediate, complete exoneration of all charges and all hostile actions, all orders ever undertaken by any state of Alaska court or district court regarding any physical property issue whatsoever addressing us or our names or names thought to be ours. And that includes any actions taken now or in the past by Roswell Properties, located in Roswell, Nevada, or Pacific Rim LLC in Anchorage, Alaska, and also honor our liens against the defunct and bankrupt, all caps, Matanuska Susitna Borough Incorporated. We dissolve any trust and release any property in REM back to us. Reclaim your honor and avoid your liability, Mr. Trump, by cleaning up this whole mess for us and countrywide. The writ of execution is effective immediately. We have been slandered and misidentified and mischaracterized for over 160 years, chased, beaten, shot at, burned out, ambushed, murdered, had innumerable homes and farms stolen under force, been laughed at in your crooked courts, derided by your bought and paid for thugs, falsely accused of crimes. Mr. Trump, my husband, moved 12 times in the first 11 years of his life to avoid King Herod, a satanic British Union general intent on raping him and taking his life. Do you really think that your administration's recent actions, accusing us of owing taxes we couldn't possibly owe, selling our home out from under us without notice or due process, harming and harassing our elderly friends, you think this kind of violent, sordid criminal action coming from Westminster is any surprise to us? You think that we will buckle now when our deliverance is at hand? When my husband died, his face glowed with golden light for hours afterwards. The expression on his face was utter joy and wonder. His reward was sure, and his treasure in heaven. When the genealogist came to find my name and my photo was placed on the table, it too glowed with golden light. We have done what we have done and earned what we have earned, and nobody on earth can take that from us. Notice to agents is notice to principals. Notice to principals is notice to agents. So be it, everybody. So be it, right? Anna is doing the work. Anna says that they're coming very close. Let me just read this message to you also. Hang on. She's traveling right now, and she's trying to, it's the only time she has to be able to visit with her family. So, well, I can't find it. Of course. When I need something to pop up real quick. She says that we're closing in on the bank functions and getting prepared. We also have an offer from major grocery store chains to provide our assemblies with food for members in surrounding communities if everyone can get themselves organized to distribute. So, that's the other big take-home message. But as you can see, there's a lot going on Earth. There's a lot happening. And we're working as fast as we can to be able to get our schedules to connect, time change and all that jazz, and the time difference between here and Alaska as well. So everybody, let's just keep our spirits high. If anyone can still help Anna, all her information is here on the screen. And we love and appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for the continued support. And hey, love is winning, because you know what? Love already won, didn't it? Love already won, everybody. So go out there, go to your happy place, and, speak out all of your declarations, speak them out and decree, and let us move forward, everyone. Let's move forward. I'll see you next week.